What's up, fight fans? Welcome back to Punch Ons. This weekend, we're back at the Apex again. We've got UFC Fight Night, Bonfim versus Brown. A lot of people are writing this card off, but I reckon this one's actually got a little bit of depth. There's some genuine talent on this card, and even though the main event is not the greatest in terms of name value, and I really think they fucked up the card order quite significantly, looking at you, Matt Schnell versus Joseph Morales in the co-main event, I'm pretty pumped for this card. I reckon the hardcores are going to enjoy this one, and we should get a few decent scraps. Not too much on the line here, but some good prospects and some interesting style matchups. A couple of solid names on the card. The main event's solid. Muslim Salikov's on there. I'm a fan of that guy. The other Bonfim bro is taking on Crispy Tortilla. Marco Tullio's a good prospect. Hyder Emil's really fun to watch. Ricky Simon versus Raoni Barcelos should be good. Bit of unranked heavyweight slop in there. That should be a laugh. Tisha Pennington is fighting Gilbert Burns for some reason. Miles Johns, Daniel Marcos, Zach Reese filling in on short notice. Yeah, this card's pretty solid. Looks like Adrian Yanez is off the card though, that sucks. Was looking forward to seeing him return. Anyway, card's looking solid, plenty on there for us hardcore UFC fans. I think there's going to be some action all the way down the card for sure. We're coming off a very solid week of picks last week. I just trusted my gut and I ended up going 11-2. I'll be doing the same this week. I'm expecting nothing less than 10 correct picks out of 12 on this card. So let's get into the picks. I'm frothing at the mouth to talk about them. Let's punch on. The main event here is Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown. Randy Rude Boy Brown is returning to the octagon for his second fight of 2025. His last effort was a nasty, violent KO of Nicholas Dalby, where he looked pretty good. Cracked Dalby's chin, which had never been done before. Very violent finish of Dalby. It was sick to watch. Bonfim's coming off a pretty stinky performance in his split decision win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Had a decent round one and nearly got a choke on Wonderboy, but didn't have a lot of success otherwise. Got rocked and wobbled all over the place in round two by a head kick. It was a very even fight and a lot of people thought Thompson won that. It was one of those fights I remember watching going, I personally would give the scorecards to Wonderboy, but I kind of knew that Bonfim was going to get the nod. Don't ask me why. Maybe another one of these allegedly fixed fights, but who knows. Wonderboy had his leg busted up in that fight and it looked nasty. That might have had something to do with it as well. Bonfim, he didn't gain a bunch of fans or hype from that fight. I really don't think that either of these Bonfim bros are elite or championship material, but I also think people have been a bit harsh on both of them. Bonfim's 18-1. Interestingly, his only loss in his career actually came to Nicholas Dalby. Pretty ironic. I wonder if that had anything to do with Dana's cooked matchmaking logic here. He's not beaten that many good guys. He's got wins over Trey Waters, Mooney Lazez, Trevin Giles, Ange Lusa, Chaos Williams, and Wonderboy. Randy Brown's definitely one of the better guys he's faced, but not by a great deal. Bonfim is a submission specialist with decent hands and speed. He's finished a lot of his fights by submission, has a few good guillotines, Darce chokes, a Von Flu. Yeah, I reckon we haven't seen the best of this guy yet. I'm not sure how high his ceiling is, but I think he's pretty good in terms of BJJ and should have a clear strength in that area in this fight. Randy Brown, just as I said, smashed Dalby, which is good for his chances in terms of MMA math. He got smashed by JDM, can't really fault him for that. Otherwise, recent wins include Alessio Zaleski dos Santos, Muslim Salikov, and Wellington Turman. Lost to Brian Battle by split decision, another close fight. He's such a rocks and diamonds fighter, Randy Brown. Some nights he looks like a future champ, other times he's face down, ass up, getting choked out and made to look like a fool. I don't think I can rely on Randy Brown to get this one done. I think it's going to be a pretty close affair at first. Bonfim might test the striking out, but I think Randy Brown will start to get the better of him on the feet. Bonfim might have a few dicey moments early. Randy Brown will start flowing, but then I can see Bonfim going to the wrestling. I think maybe he has a couple of takedown attempts stuffed early. Maybe the commentators start glazing Randy Brown, saying Bonfim's in trouble, but I reckon he'll shoot again and again and eventually get him down, or maybe he'll catch a kick as Randy Brown starts to feel himself. I think eventually Gabriel Bonfim gets him down and there'll be too much of a skill disparity on the mat. Randy Brown puts himself in danger trying to escape grappling exchanges, and I think he's going to make a mistake, put his head in a ghillie or leave his arm in a triangle or something. I think he will be winning the fight, make a mistake, and Bonfim will be smart and savvy enough to capitalise. Weird logic to pick a fight on, but this is kind of how Randy Brown goes sometimes. He's been submitted a couple of times in his day. I'm not too sold on Bonfim. It wouldn't shock me either way here, but I think the most probable outcome here is a Bonfim win on the ground. I'll take that safe option. Gabriel Bonfim, late round 1, maybe round 2 submission. I'll say guillotine choke after a mistake made by Randy Brown. Let's keep running. Matt Schnell versus Joseph Morales is the co-main event. Man, they really got Matt Schnell co-main eventing in big 2025, huh? Absolute cinema. Nah, for real, the bout order of this card is completely fucked up. Any other fight on this card would be a better co-main. I genuinely believe I'd have more hype for Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti as a co-main. Nah, that's going a bit far. They must like this Joseph Morales guy. He's only had one fight in the UFC, a round 2 submission win over Alabi Idris. I think it was the Ultimate Fighter flyweight finale, at UFC 319. Look, not a heap of tape study done on this guy, but I saw enough from his lone UFC performance to say confidently that he beats Matt career in danger Schnell. Morales looks pretty well rounded. He's got good hands and dangerous jiu-jitsu. He mixes it up well. I like his work to the body, and he's got a good amount of versatility in his striking. Matt Schnell was on a generational loss streak before his most recent win over Jimmy Flick. That win probably saved his career, but not for long, I don't reckon. I think he's just delaying the inevitable. Matt Schnell has fought some good guys, but he's lost to pretty much all of them. Lost to Rob Font back in the day, Pantoja by KO, Royval by submission, lost to Mateus Nicolau by KO, Steve Erceg by KO, Cody Durden by submission. Yeah, one of those guys, just like Phil Rowe, like I said last week, a professional UFC loser. Gets paid to turn up, take on these guys nobody wants to fight and just gets smoked by them. Then does it all again a couple of months later. Think we're going to get a vintage Matt Schnell performance here. I'd say he gets chinned or maybe clubbed and subbed, so I'll go with that. Joseph Morales just going to speed and power mog him, sit him down in round 1, choke him out with a rear naked. I can picture it quite well. Look, there's a world where Schnell shows his experience and his craftiness and maybe gets a decision win, but I'm not going to count on it. Safe money here is on Joseph Morales by finish, and I'm leaning that way. Let's do it. Lock number 1 this week is Joseph Morales. I like putting locks on these guys, not because I like the guys, but because I know their opponents are really fucking good at losing. So, yeah, we're going to lock in Joseph Morales. On to the next one. Muslim Salikov versus Uros Medic. Muslim Salikov. I'm pretty sure this guy's Habib's great uncle or something. Swear this guy built the Apex. Old mate's 41 years old and still kicking guys' heads off at a solid level of competition in the UFC welterweight division. Fucking beast. The least grappling Russian UFC fighter of all time. Great striking, Muay Thai, very solid kicks and straight punches. Fights long, does well going backward and has nasty power. We saw that in his nasty knockout win over Carlos Leal, the roid monster. That was a sick knockout. He dipped down under a jab from Leal and uncorked an overhand right that slept him bad. He's got that sick highlight reel spinning heel kick KO over Song Kanan as well. He's been on a pretty good run lately. Uros Medic's form has not been so good. He's been win-loss for his last few. Wins over Gilbert Urbina, Tim Means and Matthew Semmelsberger. Neither of those wins really means a lot. Lost to Punahele Soriano by KO and got subbed by Muktabek Oralbai. So a pretty patchy record for Uros. He's alright, but I don't mind his style. I think he's just pretty mid overall. Just a tough, predictable kind of guy who struggles against guys with power and dynamic striking. I think he's well-rounded, but not really that good anywhere. And if the other guy has a clear striking or grappling advantage, they can get Uros out of there. He did have a great performance in his last one, slept Gilbert Urbina bad with a straight left hand, and pulled the Kung Fu move celebration. It did look pretty cool. But this time he's going in there against the king of Kung Fu, and I think it's going to be another win here for Muslim Salikov. Uros wins all his fights by KO, and don't get me wrong, Muslim is chinnable, but I don't know. I think Muslim Salikov's going to win this. I've got a feeling, though, he's going to get it done by decision. I reckon both guys are going to respect each other's striking, and it's going to lead to a patient, somewhat cautious affair. I can see Muslim just staying busier, looking more threatening, and keeping Uros at bay. Another close fight and a hard one to predict here, but I'm going to have faith in my guy Muslim Salikov. He's been good to me lately. I think he's got another few scraps in him before he's done in the UFC. Let's go with Muslim Salikov by decision. Not shocked at all if it's by TKO, but I've got a feeling this one's going to go the distance. Muslim Salikov by 29-28 decision. Let's keep moving down the card. Chris Padilla versus Ismael Bonfim. Crispy Tortilla. himself, the Taco, taking on Ismael Bonfim. Man, I don't know why, but I just sense the index rising on this one. There's something fishy about these guys. Ismael Bonfim's career has been pretty weird up to this point. He was a very highly touted prospect on the come up. I believe people were thinking this guy was the better Bonfim brother. His hype was at an all-time high after he flying kneed Terence McChinney, but then he crossed paths with the god of war, Benoit Saint-Denis, and his momentum stopped dead. The UFC laid him up with Vince Pickle, or Vink Pickle as I like to call him. He cruises to a decision win there, but then he gets knocked back down a peg or two with a doctor stoppage loss to Nazim Sadikov. Just copped a kick to an unfortunate part of the eye, busted him up and he couldn't see, so he couldn't continue. Disappointing, but he's got a chance to get himself back in the mix with a win over Chris Padilla. Padilla's on a solid 6-fight win streak, 3 wins in the UFC on the trot over James Yontop, Rong Zhu and Jai Herbert. Pretty low level of competition. He went to a split decision against Jai Herbert, which Herbert could have won. I'm pretty sus on that performance. Taco has a 3-inch reach in this fight. That's significant. I think Ismail's grappling is a bit worse than his little brother's, but I am a little bit confused over who's who at this point. They might both be imposters, these Bonfim brothers. I guess we'll find out this weekend. A lot of people are picking Chris Padilla. I'm feeling a close 29-28 decision either way here. Maybe we get something crazy like a draw or a robbery here. I don't know. Padilla went life and death with Jai Herbert, got busted up, slowed down a lot in the 3rd round. It's not a good look at all. So based on that, I'll go with Ismael Bonfim getting his hands raised by a weird close decision win, but I am sensing some impending doom here. Maybe we get another weird ref moment or something that ruins the fight. So I'm picking both the Bonfim bros. Maybe a terrible idea, but let's see what happens. Next fight, Ricky Simon versus Raoni Barcelos. Banger alert on this one, I reckon. I'm a fan of both these guys. Ricky Simon survived a tough 3-fight loss streak against really good opponents. Song Yadong, Mario Batista and Vinicius Oliveira. That's top tier competition there, and he hung in there against all those guys. He made it to round 5 against Song Yadong and went to decisions against Batista and Oliveira. Simon's bounced back in a pretty impressive way since then, though. He won the hearts of the UFC fans all over the world by chinning Javid Basharat, and he also beat a decent prospect in Cameron Smotherman. Obviously, Raoni Barcelos has been on his own impressive run, beating Christian Quinones and Cody Garbrandt, but most impressively, putting the brakes on Peyton Talbot's little run. He also has experience against very high-level opponents. Lost to Umar Nurmagomedov, Kyler Phillips. Yeah, this guy's criminally underrated, and I don't think it'll be an easy fight for Ricky Simon. I'm going to have to go with Simon here, though. This guy beat Marab. Kind of. I think he's back, Ricky Simon, and I reckon he'll look impressive here against Raoni Barcelos. I think Barcelos will make him earn it. He's a crafty old vet of the game with 13 UFC fights, but even though Ricky Simon is 5 years younger than him, he's actually got more UFC fights. That's crazy. I had to double check that. But yeah, the pick's going to be Ricky Simon. He's a gangster. I think he battles through a bit of adversity in this fight. Barcelos will have a few tricks up his sleeve. He'll be mixing it up and he's got awkward timing that could put Simon off his game. But in the end, I reckon Ricky Simon has the better finishing instincts and more fight-ending ability than Barcelos. If it goes a distance, I reckon it's 50-50, but I'll give Ricky Simon the finishing edge. That's enough there for me to side with Simon. I'm going to say he gets this one done by decision, but I won't be surprised if it's a late round submission or TKO either. I think he'll be the faster, more explosive and more powerful guy, and Raoni Barcelos is not getting any younger at all. So yeah, I'm jumping back on the Ricky Simon train. I reckon he'll get this one done, and I'm mildly optimistic and somewhat confident in this pick. Christian Leroy Duncan versus Marco Tulio. Tulio's got a fair bit of hype on him at the moment. People glaze this guy like crazy, and he's been a huge favourite in all his UFC fights. He's a favourite here again, just slightly. I like his activity. He's had 2 wins on the Contender Series last year, punched his ticket after beating Yusri Belgarui, which has aged well. I think he didn't get his UFC contract after that fight. He had to fight again, but still a good win for him. Got his start in the UFC against Ihor Peteria. He won that easily by knockout. And then his latest performance was in April against Trayshawn Gore. He got rocked in that fight at the start, but he ended up getting a pretty nasty TKO in round 2. Very nasty finishing sequence. Head kick, Superman punch, nasty elbows on the ground. Somehow he got back to the feet. He missed a big emu kick and then he landed just a straight shot from hell down the pipe. TKO. It is Trayshawn Gore though. I reckon my nan would look decent against Trayshawn Gore. Got to admit, I had Chris Duncan and Christian Leroy Duncan confused for a little while there. Turns out Chris Duncan is the better guy so far, but Christian Leroy Duncan is pretty decent as well. He beat Andrei Pulyaev and Eric Anders. Nothing too special, but I don't mind Pulyaev. Duncan's going to have a huge reach advantage here, and I reckon that could be a factor. This should be a stand-up fight, and I'm a bit worried that Toledo will just blitz in and knock out CLD, but I don't know. I feel a sneaky underdog pick here. A lot of people are nut riding Marco Tullio, but I'm going to go with Christian Leroy Duncan by decision. I just see Duncan being too long, too rangy. He's decent enough, and he's good enough at striking that I reckon he'll be able to keep Toledo at bay. Toledo could very well land something heavy and get rid of Duncan, but I think if this goes the distance, Duncan can get it done. I'm going to say Duncan wins 2 out of 3 rounds just purely through jabs and leg kicks, maybe not landing as much volume, but being more accurate with his shots. Toledo will slow down late in the fight, and I reckon CLD wins the second and the third, maybe survives a scare in round 1 and has to grapple or run away to survive. But I'll say Toledo shoots his wad and gasses himself out, and CLD takes over the fight. Risky pick, it could backfire, but I'm not phased. CLD by decision as a big underdog here. Hyder Emil versus Jamal Emmers. I'm confidently going with Hyder Emil here. I don't think a loss to Jose Delgado is too bad of a look. Jamal Emmers' losses aren't too bad either. Lost to Nate Landwehr, Jack Jenkins, Pat Sabatini, Giga Chikadze, Julian Arosa, and Thiago Moises. These guys are all pretty solid, but his wins are nothing special at all. Very unknown guys, and you can't really pick a guy based off losing to a lot of good guys. Hyder Emil, he's at least got a couple of solid wins. William Gomez, he's boring, but he's alright at fighting. I was hyped as fuck for Hyder Emil before that loss to Jose Delgado. He looks sick in his UFC fights. He's got an awesome, wild style, and I think he's going to look to disrupt the flow of Jamal Emmers, who likes to strike at range and stay light on his feet. I think Hyder Emil will crash in with his block head, eat a few shots, get in close, and work the body and head of Jamal Emmers. I reckon he puts a bit of a pace on Jamal Emmers that he can't handle. Got to be careful he doesn't eat a big shot like he did against Delgado, but I think he learns a lot from that fight, comes back better and smarter, and takes care of Jamal Emmers with relative ease. TKO win for Hyder Emil is the pick here. Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. This one's pretty simple. Is Mayra Bueno Silva completely washed, or has she still got it? Who knows? Who cares? She's 34 years old, looked awful in her last few fights, especially against Raquel Pennington. Look, I like Mayra. I reckon she's a bad bitch, but I'm going to have to go with the younger, bigger, stronger girl with more momentum here, Jacqueline Cavalcanti. She's on a solid 7-fight win streak, beat some known WMMA names like Julia Avila, Nora Cornhole, Josiane Nunes, Zara Fan, and Melissa Croden, which is aging pretty well, that last one. I'm going to go with Cavalcanti by decision, but not confident. WMMA is all over the shop, as we know. Josh Hockett versus Max Jimenez. Haven't done a lot of homework on these guys. Just on the eye test, the resume test, I think I'm going to lean to Josh Hockett. He's undefeated on a 6-fight finish streak. Pretty sure Jimenez is like a pure jiu-jitsu guy. He's quite an accomplished BJJ guy, but as we know, that doesn't always mean a lot in the UFC. It's heavyweight. Absolutely anything can happen here. You know, I can see Jimenez rolling for a leg and Hockett just stepping out, standing him up, and then putting one on his chin. But maybe the BJJ nerd wraps up a toe hold or something crazy. Hard to say whether I'd need to back this fucking wimp or not. So, now you know what? I don't know anything about this fight, so it's probably a perfect one to use a coin flip on. So, let's do it. We're going to go heads for Hockett and tails for Jimenez. Here we go. Hey, we finally got a tails. Oh, right when I didn't really want one, but there you go. So we're going to go with Jimenez, and I guess he's a BJJ guy, so he's going to get it done by heel hook. I reckon he's been studying a bit of tape of Walter Walker, and he's going to take a leaf out of his book. So let's go with Jimenez by submission, heel hook, or something crazy like that. The coin has been flipped. Next up, it's Miles Johns versus Daniel Marcos. Decent matchup here for the early prelims. These guys are veterans of the bantamweight division, and I think this should be a pretty fun fight. Likely a mainly striking affair. Both guys have some power and volume. I think Marcos will be the longer rangier guy and he should have a striking advantage, and I'll say he keeps himself safe in this fight. Johns will be trying to get him on the ground, but Marcos' takedown defense is decent, and I think he keeps this standing, boxes up Miles Johns, and wins by TKO or decision. Not a lot of faith in either of these guys, though, so an upset here wouldn't shock me either. I'll go with Daniel Marcos to just be a little bit too much on the feet for Johns. Tisha Pennington versus Gilbert Burns. Bruh, Gilbert Burns fell off. This guy was fighting for the title against Kamaru Usman not that long ago, and now here he is fighting at women's strawweight against Raquel Pennington's missus. Absolute scenes. Oh shit, that's Denise Gomez, my bad. Fuck, they look very alike. Not going too deep on this one either. Tisha Pennington's alright. She's fought a lot of good girls. Went to a split decision with the now champ Mackenzie Dern. Denise Gomez is on a 3-fight win streak. I reckon she keeps it going with a decision win over Tisha Pennington here. Tisha likes to go the distance and she's never been finished, but she can get out-volumed and overwhelmed by power and strength. I reckon Gomez wins this by decision with more powerful strikes landed, more damage, and maybe mixes in the grappling for a bit of control time. Close-ish fight. Tisha will do okay, but Gomez will get it 30-27. Maybe one judge gives Tisha a round. I'm locking in Denise Gomez for our second lock of the week. Go and get amongst that Gomez by points money, fellas. And opening up the card, it's Jackson McVeigh versus Zachary Reese. Interesting addition to the card, this one. McVeigh was supposed to be fighting Robert Valentin, but that guy hurt his back and he pulled out. I was going to pick McVeigh in that fight, but now he's taken on a bit of a better guy, in my opinion, in Zach Reese, the nutsack destroyer himself. There was talk of Dante Johnson stepping into fight on back-to-back cards here, but supposedly he couldn't get medically cleared. Reese, I don't think he's that flash, but he's got a bit more UFC experience on his side, and I didn't really think much of Jackson McVeigh in his lone UFC loss to Bruno Ferreira. I'm going to go with Zach Reese, even though he's on short notice. I think he gets a TKO win over Jackson McVeigh. McVeigh looks a bit soy and chinny, and I reckon Reese is going to starch him. Not a huge amount of logic to discuss here, just going off pure vibes, but it seems like it's the right option to me. Reese back in the win column with a round 1 or 2 TKO. Probably flatlines him with a head kick or some big right hook or something. Anyway, that's the pick this week, fellas. Looking forward to this card. Gonna be some chaos, I reckon. Probably a few underdog wins, and I'm expecting a couple of nasty finishes. Make sure you like this vid and definitely sub to the channel if you haven't already. My goal is to hit 100 subs by the end of the year, and we're halfway there. Doesn't take much at all, and I promise I'll repay your faith with some juicy picks and just more random content about whatever comes into my cook brain when I'm supposed to be working my day job or fucking sleeping like right now. Anyway, enjoy the card this weekend. Fingers crossed for a shit ton of chaos and doom. See if the Bonfim bros are anything special. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next vid. Punch on.